Donamsima. Ikuak nehuatl nimikix, xinextoka notlecuilco, iguan keman tisiuatl letlaxka, xinexochtili.
Contrary to what European colonizers supposed about the Aztecs when instead of alphabetic writing they found pictographs, this culture maintained a sophisticated system to record itolaca, or history. Itolaca, loosely translated into what is said about someone or something, was documented in codices which were stored in amoxgali, or libraries. Pictographic books, amoxtli, were read by looking at the pictures while narrating the story the pictures depicted. The Aztec concept of writing, tlacuilolistli, was intertwined with painting, so much that writing was also referred as the action of using the red and the black ink, the wisdom of the past that guided the path. Tlacuilos, who were painters, writers, historians, recorded history and culture in the amoxtli. In essence, tlacuilolistli had the same purpose as what we know as writing today, to convey meaning and to preserve memory, but with a larger consideration for metaphors and interpretations rather than literal meaning, much like poetry. Decolonizing theorist Walter Mignolo argues that because the interpretation changed when the interpreter changed, and mainly when the ruler for whom the interpreter worked changed, Western Europeans found Aztec practices of preserving memory and history erratic and unstable. Mesoamerican amoxtli were doomed to go down in history as unreliable historical records that do not employ true writing. Thus, regrettably, rhetorical and composition inquiry, according to Damian Baca, reduces them to quaint artifacts of an apparently extinct culture. While Western European ideology intended to, putting it in Baca's words, write over Mesoamerican visual traditions, pictographic practices continued, mutating into various artistic, social, cultural, historical expressions like mural compositions. Lincoln Park in El Paso, Texas has a total of 45 murals dedicated to honor the Mexican-American culture and its indigenous roots. The murals are created to remember the struggles of this minority group and therefore also pay tribute to those who have been part of the struggle of minorities, such as Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy. Gabriel Gaitan, a modern-day Tlacuilo I recently interviewed, explains that he composes murals to tell American history from the point of view of the people of the Americas. The park is a public library, a public gallery. It centers colonial institutions such as art museums, history museums, and libraries founded on Western European notions of knowledge and modernity. Artists in Lincoln Park use their own languages, such as images, Spanish, English, and Spanglish, to decolonize their space. Similar to the strong visual traditions of our land, oral performances have always been present. During the 17th century in colonial Mexico, ancient American oral practices blended with European poetry traditions to give birth to a rich Baroque poetry written to be read in public. The leading author of this literary movement was Sor Juana. To those who know her name, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz is the embodiment of the one who said what women were not supposed to say. Born in colonial Mexico, this Creole of the 17th century was no ordinary nun. Favored by the viceroys of the New World, her work was often performed in the royal palace. But her fame did not come without censure from the Eurocentric religious masculine gaze. She resisted the dreadful impositions of the Catholic Church with sassy and clever words imprinted in her poems, plays, and letters. In the fall of 1690, Don Juan Manuel Fernández de Santa Cruz, Bishop of Puebla, under the surname of Sor Filotea de la Cruz, published a letter admonishing Sor Juana for not being a good Christian and for having written a critical essay 40 years earlier about a sermon given by the priest Antonio Vieira. Sor Filotea's reproving letter was published along with the critical essay written by Sor Juana without Sor Juana's consent. In response, Sor Juana published a letter to Sor Filotea, going along with the hoax, thanking the concerned nun for troubling herself with the work of others and explaining and justifying to the masculine audience of her time her work as a female writer. This letter became one of Sor Juana's best rhetorical essays. Like Sor Juana, women poets of the spoken word today confront colonial ideologies through their performances. A mutation of hip-hop and rap, spoken word poetry clearly grants a case of decolonizing rhetoric, as it has become the perfect mode to give voice to women poets from diverse backgrounds. These hybrid minds direct their attention to the complex matters of identity, gender, and language. There is an innate connection between gender, culture, and language in the work of Losada Oliva as in the work of Sor Juana. Both displays of women disobedience are without a doubt performances of resistance against Western European dominant narratives that judge and condemn hybrid minds. The oral traditions of colonial Mexico and today's women of the spoken word, along the side of visual practices of ancient and modern-day Tlacuilos, provide us with an extensive evidence of the existence of composition and rhetorical practices that are as valuable as alphabetic text. These are only a few examples of a vast number of marginalized practices that have always existed and are still awaiting to be redressed.